Hi felters and welcome. Thank you so much for purchasing my kit, and let's just have a little talk through what you get in your kit for Beatrice and Bonnie. So this is the core wool. It's a Perendale bat from World of Wool. We'll have a look at that in a minute. That's the mocha, the eggshell and the raven. Then we've got finger guards. You don't have to use them. We've got pipe cleaners. You should have 4 in there. Straighten them out. They're just normal everyday pipe cleaners. And then needles. Your needles are from Heidi Feathers and you get 3. You get a green 36, a red 38 and a 40 spiral or twisted. That's my favourite. Most of the time you'll use the 36 and the 38. But I just wanted you to have the nice one, the blue twisted spiral, to try it at some point. You'll use it in the future if you carry on felting after this. This is just a little care instructions leaflet. This is the code for the needles for Heidi Feathers. Really important, keep that. This is your mat, which we're going to felt on. And then the main colours, we've got squirrel is the grey and rabbit is the slightly beige brown one. So everything's written in your PDF and instructions. I was just going to show you briefly how to use the finger guards if you've never used them. Put the long one on your index finger and then the shorter one on your thumb, and it's on the hand that you hold the wool with so you don't stab that hand. So that's the basics, that's the kit. Now we are going to get started, and there's a couple of things I want you to do straight off before we begin felting. So see you in the next video. So before we do any felting whatsoever, undo your white wool, which is a core, well, I call it a core wool, it's a Perendale bat. And just to show you, a bat is a big flat sheet of wool. That's how it comes off the machine. And then these are slithers, so they're like long and rope-like, so that's why you've got a difference in the way in which the wool comes. So take your white wool and straight away split it into 2 equal piles, and that's going to be 1 for each hair. And put it into your hands and scrunch it up, and you can kind of feel if it feels similar. Don't panic, you will have white left over, I'm sure. So I tried to oversupply. So put 1 aside for the second hair. We're going to do Beatrice first. And then of this pile that you've got for the first hair we're going to do, take about 1/5 to 1/4 out. And it's for the chest hair and the tail and the nose. So you want a little bit put aside. And just hold it in your hand. It's just a little tiny bit in your hand. And then the rest of it we're going to use, well, you're probably not going to use all of it for the body, but you'll use quite a lot. So we're going to start, take your first pipe cleaner, fold it in half and twist it from the top. We only do this just to strengthen it a little bit. It's a lot easier to have something to wrap the wool around. So I twist it all the way down, and then the length we want it to be is 5.5 inches or thereabouts. So I've got a little ruler here. 5.5 inches is approximately just a tiny bit off the end of this once you've folded it in half. I like to fold the ends under so you don't have a sharp end of the pipe cleaner sticking out. So take a small section of wool. Wool, you always get little bits in it. It's called vegetation. It's all been washed and processed, so it's all safe, but you do get little bits in it. You don't have to pull them all out, but sometimes they annoy me, so I do quite often pull them out. So start at one end, and you've got this little bit of wool. If you lengthen the wool out before you start twisting, then it's easier to wrap. And we're just going to do a very simple wrap all the way up along the pipe cleaner. Do you see how I'm keeping the wool quite flat? I had a bit too much there, so I've just pulled some off the bottom. And keep the wool nice and flat. Don't, see, there we go, don't twist it as you go, because it's just going to make it harder to sort of get the felt. You'll end up with lots of lumps and bumps. So just wrap, wrap, wrap all the way round and keep hold of it, because at the moment it would ping off. And then take your 36 needle, which is the red one. Let me just double check that. Nope, the green one. Take the green needle and just start felting. Now, felting is a sort of gentle tapping. So if you've never felted before, go and have a look at my first time felting playlist on my YouTube. It's beginner playlist and it's first time ever felting. And just have a look at that, and I talk you through how to initially just start felting. And so it's nice gentle tapping. It's not, you know, hammering really, really hard. And you've got a piece of wire in the middle of this one. So hold the needle lightly so that if it hits the wire, it sort of bounces off. Needles do break. It's quite common when you're a beginner. If this needle breaks, you can go to your other one, which is the red one. And then if that one breaks as well, I would suggest ordering some more needles from Heidi Feathers. So here I was just looking at what I've got already, and I'm gently felting it so it stays on. And I was deciding which end is going to be the flat bottom end and which end is going to taper off towards the neck. It kind of sort of becomes obvious as you start doing it. You think, oh, that looks a little bit bigger at that end, so I'll make that the bottom. Here I am pulling bits out. I've moved on to my Wool Buddy mat because it's easier for you to see, and we can zoom in a little bit as well. So at the moment we are just felting not really close together with the needle. We're just doing sort of stabbing holes, probably about, I don't know, ½ centimetre apart, and we're just going all the way over it and just securing it so it stays on. We're not making it super firm at this stage, and I sometimes sort of felt more at 45 degrees as well, not necessarily at right angles to it, more at 45 degrees. So we've done one layer, and you've got to spend quite a bit of time, probably about 10 minutes, going over it all, twisting it, turning it, felting it, before we start the next layer. So take another piece of wool similar to the one before, start at the bottom and work your way up. And the pipe cleaner is still slightly showing, but we'll cover that up a little bit more as we go. Don't panic yet. And then again, secure it on. So you tack it in place, and you can literally let go of it once you've done the first bit. And then you're going to felt and roll, and work your way all the way over it. When we're doing the bottom, I like to felt upwards, try not to hit the wire directly. If the wire's a bit annoying, I just push it in a little bit. But that's how you're going to form the base, is by felting upwards. And again, we're on the second layer now, and so just spend a good 5 to 10 minutes going all the way along it, all the way over it. It helps attach all the wool, and it helps give you a really nice firm base. I'm just having a look at it there, holding it up, seeing if I'm happy that the bottom end is the flatter one, and back to felting it all the way over. So felting does take time, and it does take patience, and I'm going to work my way all the way up and over it. Now, just to show you the finger guards, how to use them, you would hold the wool in that hand and then felt with the other hand. They're quite thick, so you could, if you were really strong, pierce them, but you shouldn't be able to. But a lot of the time you'll find that you can feel the wool a bit better. See, looking closely, you can see the needle holes. They're sort of spaced apart. They're not really close. So you don't have to do this layer really close and really fine. We'll work up towards that when we put the colour on. So keep felting it. I've done about half of that. So keep felting this layer again all the way over to give yourself a lovely firm base. And see, I've done most of the top of it. I'm just going to work down the bottom here. And just to show you again, when you get to the bottom, it's going to be upward felts to help you with that flat base. Don't worry, you can push it in, you can flatten it on the table, so there's ways of getting it really flat later on, and it won't be able to stand up yet. Wait until you get the legs on, and then it will be able to stand up. See, I moved my hand right away. When you're felting in at the bottom like that, that's when you can definitely catch yourself. See how far it can go in? The felting needles go in surprisingly further than you think they do. So always be conscious of where your hand is that you're holding the felts, and never, don't be able to see your hand within fluffy wool or anything like that. And the tighter you wrap the wool, the quicker it is to felt it. I'm sure if you are an absolute beginner, carded wool is what we are working with. It is definitely much easier than tops. But there, again, there's loads of videos on my channel. To give you a rough idea, we've got 1.25 inches on the width. And again, the height's still going to be 5.5 because of the pipe cleaner. It doesn't matter, it doesn't have to be much higher. And then we're on to the third layer, so stretch it out, the piece of wool that you pull off. Make it sort of quite even, it helps you with wrapping. And then I think start at the base is always the best. Again, pull these little bits out. I mean, this is from sheep's wool, so it's bits of grass and things like that. So they cannot get every bit out. So that's why you always end up with a few bits and pieces in there. So I'm just stretching it out so it'll wrap up nicely. If it doesn't quite make it all the way to the top, don't worry, we're going to add on a little bit more. If it makes it a bit too much sort of past the top, then you can pull the end of it off. You don't want to keep making it taller and taller. So again, here we are, just securing this layer, felting it over, and we'll add a little bit more onto the top there. And then the next layer is going to be the colour for the actual coat. So it'll start to get a bit more fun. So here we are, I can see that that piece I had didn't quite go all the way to the top. So I've just taken a little piece, stretching it out to make your life a bit easier. I don't really need to remove the bits because they are going to be covered, but I don't like the needle hitting bits of vegetation sometimes. So as you can see, just hold it on, wrap it around, and the pipe cleaner's just starting to disappear a bit more here now. So what you do is you go past it, and then you just start felting that back and down. And I'd like to tuck in the little top bits. Now, later on, we're not going to felt the top of the neck really, really well. Because it will help us with attaching the head, but you do need to obviously secure the wool on there. And if you look there, that base just didn't look very even, so I thought I'd add a little bit more onto the base just to thicken it up. You'll feel along if there's like a little thin bit, you can just take a little section of wool and wrap it round, and this is just to show you what we're aiming for. This is the bit we're doing inside the body there. So it's looking about right, and we'll felt it down a bit. So there we go. I've done 3/4 of it there. So I've spent a little bit of time going over it. So you'll have to pause and catch up. But just to show you, I do all of it with just the single needle. There are multi-needle tools that you can have that will speed up your work in certain places. But actually, quite a lot of the time I do use a single needle. So there we go. Height finishing is still 5.5. We haven't added much onto the top or bottom. And then a crossways down the bottom, just to give you a rough idea, is just under 2. So yeah, just under 2 inches there. If you're there or thereabouts, that's perfect. So when you felt things down, they sort of squish down by at least 1/3. So now we're going to add the colour on. So take a section of, we're doing the squirrel one first, which is Beatrice, and take a section quite long, at least sort of 14 inches, and I just smoothed it out a bit in my hand, checked it wasn't all clumped up together. If you make it sort of as even as possible, that really helps. And then I've just attached a little bit at the start just to anchor it. You don't have to, and then we'll just wrap. And yes, mine didn't quite go all the way to the top, so that's absolutely fine. We can add some more on. Because it's carded wool, it merges really well when you add pieces on. When you're working with just tops, it's quite tricky because all the lines will show. Now, yes, there are a lot of lines in this wool. You can see it as I wrapped it round, but we'll be adding lots of bits on, so then that's not going to show that much at all. So we're just loosely going over it and sort of tacking it all on to keep it all in place so it doesn't slip. And then we'll add a bit on the bottom and a bit more on the top. And then we're going to spend at least half an hour. I know if you haven't felted much before, this is what needle felting is about, and you'll get a lovely finish. And we'll smooth it all over. So this is for the bottom. So I've just taken a small section, placed it so it went up both sides, and it just is wide enough to cover it. If your piece of wool isn't, just take another bit and put it beside it, and then just start to felt it loosely into place so it stays on. And then we're going to do lots of upward felting to try and smooth that bottom out again. And then we're going to just add a little bit onto the top. And like I said, when you get to the very top, we just don't want to overly felt the very, very top of it. So just taking a little section and we're just wrapping it round and then loosely start to felt it on. So that's all of the body covered, and have a look over it, make sure there's no gaps. It doesn't matter if there's a teeny bit of white showing at the top. We will be covering it up later when you attach the head. So I'm just felting the top bit on, but it will be good that when we go to attach the head, we just pull some of it out around the top to make it easier to attach the head. So this at the moment is very loosely felted on here. And again, little bits, always pulling out little bits. In the top coat, I don't want there to be any little black bits or anything showing. So definitely pull things out when you get to the top coat. So here we are, loosely felted. You can see lots of needle holes all the way over it. So take your 38, the red. You could use the 40 spiral if you want to have a go, but honestly, a 38 will do really good smoothing work. And we are now finally felting. We will go in a little bit closer in a second. And you are felting all around the same sort of area, moving it a couple of millimeters each time. And this is where you'll start to work the surface. And you'll felt it all the way over. And it is, personally, I find it very therapeutic to sit there for half an hour and go over. And once you finish the piece, it's lovely. So you can see the needle is going in and out quite close now, whereas before there were big gaps. We were just literally attaching the wool, and now we're just going to take our time and work our way all the way around the area. And there's a massive difference in the firmness now. It'll be a lot firmer where you've finally felted it, and you will be reaching quite far in with the needle anyway, so that's why you're firming it all up. And you'll see when you put your finger on the other side how fluffy it is. So just take your time and work your way all the way around. Have a cup of tea or have a drink and just sit down and enjoy it. So there I've done all of the middle, and then I'm just going to work my way up to the top. I'm sort of working at right angles there, going in. So that's fine. But when you get closer to the wire further down, then I definitely sort of move towards the 45 degrees. And it helps get that slope down towards the top as well. The wool will move in the direction that you are pushing it, basically. So here we are. I've just showed you some speeded up. It just takes time, and try your best. Just enjoy the process. You know, it's not like knitting. You don't have to count anything. And there we see I've just left all that top bit, and we're just going to pull that out later when we attach the head, and it's a really useful thing. So we've got to work all down the bottom now. And again, just sit there, enjoy the process, and we are going to add bits on and add more wool on and cover up any join marks. So that's not a problem, because you can see the direction of the wool a little bit, but we can cover that up later. So here we are. Now at the end, when it's all smoothed over, I sort of push it in with my hand and I try and see if it's standing up. Give it a little roll. If you feel any lumps or bumps, it sort of helps it even out. And it actually is standing at the moment without any legs, so that's really good. So final measurements, just over the 5.5, and again, just under the 2. So if you're there or thereabouts, that's perfect. And next up, we are going to add the hind quarters, but super job so far. On to the next bit. So next up, we are going to do the legs, or we'll start by doing the hips of the back legs, and then the paws, and then the front legs. So take 2 sections about 8 inches in length, and we're going to be rolling these up. So there we go. It's about 8 inches for the main section of wool. And then take one. So we're taking 2 so that the hips are going to be the same size. So take one and then roll it over, and we want it to be about 2 by 2 inches. I aim for circular. It doesn't always end up circular, and then as I put it on, it normally becomes a little bit more oval, a bit more hip shaped. So probably start with the 36 needle, the green one, and we'll just start felting it together. So it's quite soft. It's hard to wrap it really tightly, because you want to keep that sort of round shape. And so what I do is I sort of go around the edges and just felt them inwards a bit, because otherwise they start to sort of fall out and it will get too flat. So we want it to have a little bit of depth to it. You don't want it to be a flat hip. So I sort of felt round some of the edges. That's what we're aiming for, and it sort of ends up being a little bit more oblong towards the end, so don't panic too much about the shape. But felt those edges round, felt it through the middle, turn it over, felt it again. This is quite sort of loose felting. We won't firm it up until we actually put it on the body. So again, I'm just going around and keeping those edges by felting in around the edge. And then back to the centre. You can see the needle marks are quite far apart. So we're just forming the shape gradually. And that's how we're going to put it on. But we're going to leave a gap for the lower paw part, which we're going to put underneath. So it's a really simple way of forming a back leg, and it makes it very stable. The hairs stand up really well with this back leg position. So just go round, keep felting it a little bit more. It's not going to be firm, but we just want it to be holding together nicely. So I'm going to do all of the edges. Again, no longer than about 5 minutes on this, maybe even a bit less. We're at about 2 minutes already. But yeah, do turn it over, do the other side a bit. Any bits you haven't sort of felted, just felt through. You can see because there's no needle marks on the bits you haven't felted. So there we go, and that's how it's going to go on. And I tend to do the other one at the same time. Then you have two that you can compare that are the same size before you put them on. Definitely pull out any little bits in the wool that you see. There we go. So they're about 2 inches across. If you can get them roughly the same, that's perfect. So we're going to position it, see where the wool went upwards. I decided to position it sort of in the middle of that. And again, put your finger underneath, and it's a finger's width from the bottom. The best way to attach these is to felt all through the middle. Definitely use your 36 green. That's if you're doing this through the kit. If you're just doing this through the video on Thinkific, absolutely use whatever needle you want, by the way. But the 36 green is the one that I supply in the kit. So I felt all through the middle area. By doing this, you are securing the hind leg onto the body before you start shaping the edge, so you can get it nice and firm, and then you can shape the edges really easily because it will be attached and it's not going to move. And also you want to sort of have the edges sort of curve off a bit. So here we are. So you can see I've done a nice sort of circle all through the middle. It doesn't take too long. And then once you're happy that it's secure, I would have another look from the front when you're doing the other one. Make sure they're definitely level. So there we go, have a little double check. And I just squidged it up a little bit. Like I said, I'm happy for it to be more oblong. And then when you're happy, you can start felting in the edges so that they're a bit more even. And then you can felt down from the top and you'll get that nice slope going off down to the edge. That bottom bit there is fine. It's not going to show that much because we're going to cover it over with wool once we've done the lower paw area. But here we are. You can see me just sort of finish this off. I wanted to show you all of it so you can see how it goes. And don't worry about the join marks because we're going to cover it with wool. So that's not a problem. And there we are. I'm just evening that edge and making sure it's straight, and then I'm felting the top of the edge down. Nice little slope going backwards. And then I work towards the top. I just find that's the easiest way of doing it to sort of keep it even, and definitely you can move it with your hands a little bit still too. So there we are. That's most of it on. Mind your fingers. Brilliant. So that's done. So we're going to do the other one. So you want it just on the opposite side, even distance between the two, it doesn't make any difference. And just make sure it's the same height, which it should be if you hold your finger there and measure it. Then it's exactly the same process all through the middle and around the edges. So there we go, there's 2 on. Like I said, don't worry about the join marks. Now we're going to do the lower paw. So take a pipe cleaner. My pipe cleaners are 12 inches long, just if you have a basis to start from. Cut it in half and then fold that bit in half, twist it so you get a nice strong part of the pipe cleaner then, or strengthen the pipe cleaner. And then you want it to be 2 inches in length. So this is going to be the paw and going towards the back of the hind leg. So I'm just folding over to make it 2 inches in length, and that way again you get rid of that end of the pipe cleaner. And take a section of wool about 6 inches in length. You'll need to add quite a bit. If it's a slither that you've got, which you should have with the kit, take it lengthways and split it. That way you get a nice long piece that's thinner, but it's a nice even long piece. And we are just holding onto it and twisting it and wrapping it round. Slithers are much easier to wrap round. So when I do legs, for most animals, I use slithers an awful lot. And so I went to the end, and because I had so much, I went back again. This is going to be quite a thick paw, so it's absolutely fine to go back along. But when you reverse direction sometimes like that, that's when you can end up with it being quite lumpy. And I'm also using the 38 red needle to felt this on. You'll feel there's a difference. It is a little bit finer, so it's a little bit easier to get to the wool and to attach it. And I'm using a 45-degree angle to the wire, just because that's the easiest. You get more length in which you can felt it. So this is where it's going to go once we've built it up, and this is a built up one, just so you can see the difference. So we're going to add another layer. So just felt it on so it stays on. Don't worry about the back bit, and you want the back bit to be even with the back of the leg when we attach it. So we're going to build it up a bit more, and then we're going to build up. Definitely make sure you've got it over the end of the pipe cleaner, which I don't think I have there. We're going to add some more in a bit, and it still needs to be a bit thicker. So here we are, definitely adding another piece. Thin layers are better than one thick layer. And then here we are, definitely going over the pipe cleaner at the end. So just go slightly over it, and then take the needle, and you're just going to fold these pieces in. Mind your fingers. And that way you get a nice covering over the pipe cleaner. And again, like I said, 38 triangular needle is perfect for this. So once you're happy, I'll do a little measurement to show you how wide it is in a bit, because it's definitely still the 2 inches in length, or a little bit longer. You're going to spend a bit of time going all the way over it and firming it up. Again, it takes only about 5 minutes. It's not massive, but it's an important thing to do, to go over it and to firm it all up and just to roll and felt. So there we go. That's a much better size. And then I've just added a tiny bit more on the end. Hare's feet can be quite large, so it's up to you how you do it. But I think I was a bit worried about the pipe cleaner, so I've just added a little bit more right on the very tip there. And I'll just give you a little measurement with the ruler, hopefully soon. And then we firm, there we go. So it's about 3/4 of an inch, the paw end, and it's about 2 1/4, because by the time you've added a bit, it extends it. And then spend the 5 minutes or so just going all the way over it, turning it, rolling it, felting it, and it just makes it a nice firm paw. And just remember, you know, once you've done the legs, you're well over halfway. And then you've just got the head and the ears. So do the other paw, the other hind paw. And I've left the ends slightly fluffy. You don't need to overly felt them, because you're going to add wool over the top. But the front of the paw definitely needs to be well felted. And so we're going to attach it at the bottom. So you want it level with the back of the hind leg and sticking out the front. And use the 36 needle here, because there's definitely, this is definitely a chance of when you're going to hit the wire, So be very wary that the wire is in the middle. So I go either side of it. I'll show you a little bit better in a minute the exact angle. So I go sort of underneath it and then I go over the top of it. And you can secure it really well like this, but we're going to add wool over the top as well. So along there works really, really well. And then all along the top of it as well. And felt it for about a minute, have a feel, have a pull, make sure it's nice and secure. If it's not, just felt it a little bit more. If it is, then great. We're just going to add some wool over the top. And the wool over the top, so round the back you can felt it quite well. Just be careful of that wire through the middle. So there we go, have a little check. Are you happy? Yeah. So take a section of the wool, spread it out, make it nice and thin because you want it to cover all the way over the hind leg and the paw at the bottom. And this will neatly finish it off. And this is where we'll tack it all in place. You can normally do this in one go. If you don't feel confident, you can do it in 2 smaller sections. Don't worry about the front because we're going to have the legs down there. So just tack it into place. And then we're going to go over it with the 38. So definitely, sorry, I was just interrupted. Definitely with the 38 needle or the 40 spiral if you want. And we're going to neaten it all up. Now this, you know, it takes a little bit of time just to go over it, but the hind legs are going to be visible. So you really want it to have a nice smooth finish. So here we are, this is me going over it, and you just gradually work over the surface. And you can see the difference where you've spent a bit of time felting it. So half of that is done. I've still got the back half to do there. And then you're going to do the same and attach the other paw on, and then your hair will stand up. So there we go, all smoothed over, both attached. Don't worry about that. Like I said, the front leg's going to go there, and we're going to have a tail at the back there. So front legs, take a pipe cleaner for each front leg, fold it in half, and then we're going to twist it all the way down, and then we're going to fold it back because we want it to be 4.5 inches in length. So there we go, 4.5, fold it back down, get rid of those ends, which I do think it works really well folding it back. And so you want 2 of those, and then you're going to do exactly the same. So this is what we're aiming for. So we will bend them once they're all done. So they're going to sort of have a little bend in them like that. But to put the wool on, make our lives easy, we're just going to do it straight. So take a long section, split it in half. If it's too long, it doesn't matter, you can just pull off the end. So start at one end, hold on to it, and start wrapping it round nice and tight. You've got a lot more to wrap here. The tighter it is, the easier it is to felt. It's up to you. I sort of give it a little sort of tack down halfway along, so it's definitely staying there because it's quite tricky to hold it all in your hand. It's up to you whether you prefer to wrap the wool over or to twist the pipe cleaner and hold the wool still. I seem to do both, but there we go. It's whatever's easiest for you. And because this is going to be quite a thick paw, I think I do work back. I'm not sure. Maybe I don't. I think I go to, and it gets a bit lumpy. There we go. So I've pulled it off, just do one layer and just felt that on lightly and then add another layer. It's probably easier. I mean, it's definitely the way I do most legs, especially when I'm doing horses. You have to do them really thin. And you can see that's quite lumpy there, and there's a little bit where it's a bit weak behind it, which I will have to build up in a bit. And then get the next one. And then wrap it all the way along. So like I said, it's up to you which way you prefer doing it. But that's giving it a nice, I'm keeping it nice and flat in my hand. Control the wool as you put it on. And this one, I think I'm going to try and push it over the edge. And again, just pull it off. Those little bits you can use in a minute just to sort of fill in little gaps or to go halfway along. So that's 2 layers on, and I think we might just compare and maybe add a couple more bits just to thicken it up. The pipe cleaner, when it's sort of sticking out and you feel like you've got enough of a foot, if it is annoying you, just give it a little push back in with your thumb. So that's about right, but I'm going to felt it down a bit. So I think it needs to be a tiny bit thicker in places. I think I might add a little bit more. So it's just over 1/2 inch at this point. I'd say 3/4. So I'm going to add some more in the middle. And definitely add some more at the end where it's going to be the paw, so it's going to be slightly bigger. It's up to you. If you want your hare to have bigger paws, do go for it. It's absolutely fine. My husband thinks that the paws should have been bigger, but I disagree because I don't want them to be massive. But it's up to you. And now, once I'm happy, I'm pretty much there. I'm going to spend ages, and I went all the way over it. It took a lot longer because it's bigger, and then do the other one. And so this is how they're going to be. So you could have the paws quite long and put them a bit lower, or you could have the paws a bit shorter, which I shorten them a little bit here. I don't like them to be sticking out too far. And then there we go, give them another bend or two. And that's what I was aiming for. And hold them in place. I tend to hold both and check they both fit. You can just poke out the hind legs. It's not a problem. They won't get in the way. And then that's what we're aiming for. Remove one, hold that one in place. And then again, take your 36 needle and we're going to go all along the inside of one leg and the outside of it. So you can literally felt all the way down to the base of the paw, so down to about there. So this leg is going to be really well attached. They do not come off. So felt all the way through. Remember the wire is in the middle. And then at the top, where the wire is sort of fairly close to the top, be very careful, but you can felt some of that top bit in as well. So here we are all on the outside of it. And because it's sort of hidden back, you're not going to see all these needle marks of it going through. If you were to felt right through the middle of the leg, you would probably see the needle marks. So that's why we're just catching the outsides of both of them. And so do one and then attach the other one. Don't worry about the top. We're just going to cover that with wool in a minute, and the chest hair is going to come down as well. So at the top, just gently go around the tops of them, but be very careful. Once they're attached, take a small section of wool, pop it across. And this just really secures them on at the top as well. I like doing this. You could get away with not doing it, but it's just nice to know they're definitely really secure. But you are going to have to felt all of the edge of it and just make it neat. The edges will show. So felt that all on. And then we're going to be moving on to the head in a minute. The chest hair comes towards the end. So just felt it all down, felt the line into the middle, and then felt the other side, and then spend a bit of time just neatening it. If it's nice and fluffy like that, it should merge quite well. It should be quite easy to merge it. If you've got a big line showing at the side that bothers you, just take another tiny thin piece of wool and you'll be fine. So there we go. So well done. Like I say, the legs takes a bit of time, and just push the bottom in if it's sticking out, and I'll see you on the next one. Well done. And so on to the head. So take a really long bit of wool. So it's probably, I don't know, 28 inches long, but you saw the length there. And we're going to start rolling it nice and tightly. Again, just spread it out and straighten it as you go. Make sure there's no lumpy bits. And we're rolling it, it's going to be, depending on the slither, this one is the full width of the slither, so it's about 2 inches across that we're going for. And we're just rolling it all up nice and tight. That's what we're aiming for. So here we go. It's a little bit longer than 2 inches, but by the time you've felt the ends in, that's the width you're going to want. And we're going to, as we sort of start felting it, we end up squishing it so it's a bit more head shaped. But at the moment we are just wrapping and rolling and then securing the wool. So just start to tack it in. And we're going to decide, so I'm probably going to use the 36 to start this all off. I'm going to decide which end is going to be flat and which end is going to tail off to the nose. And a lot of the time it's just fairly obvious when you start wrapping something. So the back side there, that's going to be the flat one. It just looks more obvious to me. Or you can force the wool into whatever shape you want it to be. So I've decided that's the back of the head. So I'm just going to felt that all in on itself, a bit like you did with the bottom of the hair. So just stop that from falling out. So we're just sort of tacking it in loosely into the shape at the moment. And then it's going to be quite narrow across the head. And then this end is going to be the nose. And we're going to add some more on to make it even longer. So don't think that's it. And that's the kind of shape we're going for. And you can, there we go, literally squash it a bit with your fingers to help guide it. So we're just loosely felting it all over, and you see I've got it squashed so it's quite thin. And this is how you're sort of starting to form the head shape. So that's the nose, and like I said, we're just going all the way over it. Then we're going to add some more on the nose, add some more on the top, add some on the cheeks, and once that's done, and we're roughly happy with the shape, then we're going to go over it with a finer needle and firm it all up. So I'm working it all the way round. And just keeping that back of the head. With the back of the head, you're going to add the ears to it. So it won't be a sharp fall off. It will be fine once you add the ears. So working it round, there we go, and that's how it's going to look. So we're going to add some more on the nose. This is sort of an easier way of doing it. So take some wool and really make it quite short and stack it up a bit, because you want it sort of concentrated. And then we're going to felt all through the middle of this pile. Keep the edges fluffy. We're just going to pull it in a bit and make it all sort of thicker in the middle, but without felting all of it in. So you've got some of it to attach to the edges. And this will just help us add on a couple of millimeters. And there we go. So hold it on and then felt all of the fluffy bit so that you keep it in place. And I just find it's an easy way of making something slightly longer. If you try and wrap wool on the end of the nose, you can also do it like that, but I just find this way is a lot easier to get a more felted area where I want it. Sometimes when you wrap wool on the end, you end up with just a wider nose. So there we go, just felt that inwards and on, all the way working towards that shape. So there was a bit of a black line on there which I didn't like, so I'm just going to cover that up. That was in the wool. The wool sometimes has little variants like that. You could have pulled it out, but I found it easier just to cover it up. So there we go. So checking, looks good. Obviously once we felt it, it's going to squish down a bit more. So I'm going to add, so looking at measurements, 2.5 all the way down to the nose, 1 3/4 from top to bottom and crossways, just over 1. So that's the one I keep squishing it so that crossways it's not too wide. So we're going to add a section on the top. Don't worry about join marks. We will cover them up if they're showing later. So I took a smaller piece there and I'm literally just putting it right along the top line, and I don't want too much on the nose, but I just wanted it to be a bit taller in depth. And then we just loosely felt it on, tuck those bits down at the back to go around the back of the head. So a lot of this is real time because you need to see exactly how I do everything, especially with doing the markings for the nose and the eyes. So I do apologise, you're going to have to listen to me talking for a great length of time. So there we go, we're just keeping that slope still. Now this is for the cheeks, which is sort of just below the eyes. So I stacked a little bit of the wool, did exactly the same like I did with the nose. And I'm just felting it together a little bit, and we're just popping it where the cheeks are, just there. I think you don't have to, but I think it's nice that they have little cheeky pouches. Just felt it round. And then I think I add a little bit more. I do the other side. So do the other side. Then you can compare. If you look from above, look from the front, see how it feels, use your fingers. And then once you've firmed it all up, you can add a bit more on as well if you want to. So there we go. So pop it on the other side. So just keep felting it round, just getting that shape. And then once we're roughly happy with everything, we're going to go all the way over the head. It does take a while to get the head to sort of firm up all the way round. I do one side and then I do the other and then I do the top, and I kind of leave the nose quite towards the end because I don't want to lose any of the nose. I don't want it to be felted back in too much, so I felt all around it, and then at the very last bit I do the nose. So I just added a little bit more onto the cheek on the other side just to even it up. And again, like I said, you'll be feeling with your fingers. There we go. So, like I said, it's very loosely felted at the moment. Are we happy? Yep. So make sure you keep that bridge. If you felt that bridge of the nose down too much, just add a bit more. So I've just taken the 38, I think, and now we're just going to start going over it in fine detail, felting close together, and it really starts to firm up the head. And you need the head to be moderately firm because you're going to add details onto it. So I don't do that nose too much there. I go all the way around it first, and then I just don't want the nose to flatten out too early on. And I have speeded this up so you don't have to sit through it. But when we start adding details, if you added it onto a fluffy head now, the details would just felt into it, and it wouldn't look good at all. So that's why you have to firm up. So there we are, all firmed up. Now it did take me a while, so do not think that was a quick 5 minutes. It was probably 15-20 at least. So the eyes are going to go about there. We're going to do the nose detail first. This is what we're aiming for. So we're going to do that white underneath first as one white circle, and then we put everything on top of it. So take a small section of white, really quite small, and then fold under, fold under, fold under to sort of give you the shape that you're after. I find this the easiest. You could just put it on your mat and sort of pull the wool in a circle and try and do it, but I find this gives you a nice edge to start with. So that's what we're going to be doing. It's on the lower half of the nose, so I just put it on my mat and felt it a couple of times just so it stays in that shape, and then we'll do most of the adjustment once it's on the nose. So there we go, it's roughly in the shape of a circle. The top half of the circle is going to be a bit funny. It will look like it's sticking out where the pink nose is going to be once you do all the, don't worry about that. So you want it more towards the lower half of the nose. So nice and close. I'm sure you can see it really clearly. So hold it exactly the same like we did with the hind legs or the hind quarters. Felt through the middle first just to get it attached and roughly in the right place, and then we'll go around and do the edge of it. So you can see it's slightly more to the lower half of the nose and under the chin almost. That's what we're aiming for. So keep felting all around the middle of it so it's secure, and then we can go in and shape the edge of it a bit better. So I haven't quite gone right to the outside there. And now we can try and circle it. Be careful of your fingers. So I'm just sort of gently felting it down and trying to make it a nice edge. And then once you've got the edge, then you can felt it down properly. And when we actually attach the black line, my white circle looks a bit wonky, so I have to add a bit more on. So if this is all going hideously wrong and you're not happy with it, like I said, you can just pull it off and start again. If you didn't get enough wool on there, if you put too much wool on there, you know, you can easily fix things, and it's all about practice. I have been doing this a while, so when it comes to doing details, it is quite a tricky thing to learn. Some people, when we do the black lines, actually you could sew black wool on instead. That is definitely an option if you didn't fancy doing it with the black wool. So you get a big needle and some black yarn wool, and you could sew the details on. So I'm happy with the edges now, and I just sort of give it a general felt all the way around. I really hope you can't hear my washing machine in the background. I apologise if you can. Everyone's out of the house, so I've quickly decided to do this. This is quite one of my longer videos. This is 29 minutes, so I need a bit of peace and quiet. And any stray bits, just trim them off. Don't sit there for hours trying to get them felted in. So that's the lower bit. Now we're going to do the black lines. So we do it in two V's, an upright V and an upside down V, and then we join them together. If you've done any of my sheep or anything, this is a really common design, but with the hares, the lower part of the mouth is an upside down V. Normally I do a straight across, but the hares have a bit more shape to the lower part. So take some black wool, tiny amount. I like to twizzle it, hold it across, even though we're going to be doing a V, just plant that center point, that low part of the V, felt it in so it stays there, and then you can take the sides up. It's a lot easy. It's the easiest way. I wouldn't start on one side of the V and work across. I'd find that really hard. So that bit of white just sticking into the V, don't worry about that. We'll cover it up with the pink for the nose. So choose your point. I always take wool that is longer than I want it to be, because when you felt the points, the tops of it, sometimes it completely disappears if it was the exact length. So always go a bit too long, and then you can trim off if you've got too much black wool and it won't felt down. So I'm happy with the points, so I've got a little bit too much on both of them, so just trim it off, and then I felt those ones in. If you don't have enough, it's almost worse, is my view. Trying to add wool is sometimes harder, but I think I do add a bit on one side in later on. So once you've set the bottom and the top 2 points, then you can felt all along it and make sure it's nice and secure. Always use the finer needle here, definitely the 38, maybe even the 40 spiral. If you use a big needle, yes, you can, you know, to secure the points, but you might just felt the whole thing back into the face and it literally just disappears, and you're like, you'll have to start again. So there we go, that's a good V. I'm quite happy with that. It doesn't take too much felting in as well. You just, once you've got the points in and there's a tiny little bit along the lines, it should be fine. So take the same again, and we're going to do a lower upside down V. And then once you join them, it makes sense. They just look a bit weird. So I hold it straight across to make my life easy, do the point, and then take them down. This one's slightly shorter, doesn't have to be as long. And I think I just pop it to the edge of the white. And that one was perfect. I didn't need to trim any off. And then I sort of twizzle it a bit more and then start felting it in. I think I should have cut some of that one off. I had a bit too much. Always check it's fairly straight. It's very difficult to do sometimes. Sometimes I turn things upside down and just do it as a V, the correct shape. But always just stop and look and check it's level and you're happy. Slightly out there. So as you can see, if you were to sew this, it wouldn't be too bad actually. It would probably be quite neat. And because it's a nose, you can get the needle through and out the other side. I do keep meaning to get one of those needles that are shaped in a sort of a U shape, which would be a lot easier. And then we're going to join the two with a straight line. So I always have the piece of wool longer than it should be and just felt it in. The straight line is normally the easiest piece to do. And then it kind of makes sense. The nose. There we go. And you can see my white on one side is a bit too small. Maybe I just did it a little bit wonky, I don't know, but we correct that. It's perfectly easy to correct. See, I was trying to move it over and trying to work it so it looked right, but it just wouldn't, so I had to add more wool. And if your white's too big, you can add a bit of grey, you know, so there's ways to correct things. So I took a tiny bit of white and I just laid it around the outside. There we go. So it wasn't too difficult to correct at all. And it definitely looks a lot better, a lot more even. If your eyes end up being a little bit wonky, you can squidge the head quite a lot to straighten things out. Don't panic too much. Just have a look at it from the front. And then we take some of the eggshell. It is eggshell coloured, but it is, you know, it's a nice, very light pink. So that's what we're going to aim for. So we just take out any bits. And it is quite a small amount. You shouldn't take too much. So I fold the edges under a little bit, just trying to get some sort of shape out of it, but we'll shape it a lot more on the face. It doesn't have to be perfect. So hold it on, and then I felt along the two V shapes, the V edges first. So you don't want it to cover up your V because you've put all that black in, so you don't want it to cover it up. So I felt the two edge bits first and then through the middle a bit, and then I shaped the top. So the top could be straight across or it can be slightly curved. I don't think it matters too much if it was a bit fuzzy, if it was a bit wonky. So I'm felting it in a bit, making sure the nose bit's all good, the main bit, and then I'll go and straighten the top line. So you can see there's quite a bit on one side there, so I just pulled it across. And then mine's quite sticky outy. I could have done with a bit less, but I quite like a little button nose. So I'm just trying to felt it down a bit so it doesn't stick out too much. And then we'll go in and straighten that top line a bit more, because that needs to be squished down. I prefer it normally if it's like closer to the V, to the top of the V, but I don't think it's going to matter too much. And there we go. So I'm just getting that top edge, and now I can felt it all down properly. So yes, you know, it's tricky doing lines, but you just have to practice. There we go. So we're going to do the eyes next. And the eyes, normally I take a needle and I point it upwards a bit. So it's sort of parallel with the nose. And then you want it over halfway, sort of almost 3/4 of the way back. So you see that's about half, that's about 3/4. So make a little hole with your needle first, and then to get the other eye, hold it from the front and go straight across, trying to keep it straight, and that will give you a rough idea of where you want it on the other side. But you know, have a look and see if it makes sense. That looked a bit too high there for me, for my liking, especially when I held it from the front. So I had a little bit of a shuffle. Put your fingers where they're going to be. There we go. That evens it out a bit. So about there and there. That's where we're going to do them. And we're going to take some black wool. So this is a felted eye. You can get glass eyes, plastic eyes. They need a post on the back so that you can glue them in, otherwise it's quite tricky. So I took some of this black wool and it was still too much. The eye itself is actually quite a small piece, and that's what we're aiming for. So roll it between your hands, get that black wool, that bull sort of formed before you start felting it, and then I will take another needle to hold it. So we'll just have a little, I'll show you how wide it is. It's literally definitely no more than 1/4 of an inch. And I get one needle and that holds it, and then I felt through a little bit just to sort of form it together now. That way you don't, because this is tiny detail, this is where you stab your fingers all the time. So you could put your finger guards on and do it like that as well, but I just find this is really quick and easy with another needle. So just felt it round a little bit. It doesn't have to be really firm. And then hold it in place, and yeah, I'm quite happy with that size. Now we're going to go in close, but I'm using the 38 needle and I am felting around the edge of the eye at the moment just to get the shape. And I felt all around that lower edge bit, top and bottom, so I don't lose the bulge of the eye. It's quite nice if the eye has a little bit of roundness, but if you were to felt it right in the middle, it might sort of sink into the head too much. So I felt it all around the edge. Then I'm just going to squish it a bit because I want it a bit more almond shaped, or yeah, almond shaped, I would say. And then I will do some felting through the middle once I'm happy with it. It doesn't matter if it felts in a little bit, but you just don't want it to all sink into the head. So there we are, I've felted through and just, yeah, squidging it a little bit more and just checking that the other side, that's going to look correct with the other eye where it's going to be. So we're going to do an outline of white. So take a really small amount of white, and for me the easiest way is to anchor it at a point, which is where it sort of points down a bit sometimes, and then so anchor it there and then follow the line of the eye, and as always have it too long. So you're not, I haven't twizzled this, I've just sort of made it thin, but you could twizzle it if you want to, if you want it a lot finer. I just like it to be a little bit wider than, if you twizzle it, it'll be really quite thin. And then I'm following the inside of, or the outside of the eye, but the inside of the white line. And then the ends of it, you can just felt in, or if you've got too much, just give it a trim. But I think it's absolutely fine to felt some of that in. Sometimes the bit that I trim off there, I use for the white of the eye, because the white of the eye that we're going to do next is teeny. There we go. So that's nice and easy. It's lovely outline detail. And see those little extra bits? Don't spend hours felting them, just cut them off. And then this is a teeny little bit for the white of the eye. It's still too big, so I'm going to halve it and use the other half of the other eye. So sometimes, again, if it is too small, it can felt straight in. Not a problem, just get another bit. But small is better. And you can put the white of the eye wherever you want. You can play around. It could be towards the back. It could be lower down. I'm just putting them towards the front. I quite like it here. This is the reflection that natural eyes would have. And you can still, I can even felt that in a bit more. You do not want it touching the edge of the eye. And there we go. Nice, simple, felted eye for you. And again, like I said, this is fine detail work and it's just practice. So do the other side, and there we go. And now we're going to attach it. He's going to look funny with no ears, don't worry. So I've just splayed the top of the neck out a little bit to help with attaching. And this is what we're aiming for. So we're going to felt through. The easiest way to do this is upside down. It's quite awkward for you to see what I'm doing, but we're going around all of that fluffiness at the top, and this is, we're just going to loosely attach it. It's not going to be firm yet until we put more wool on it. So check position, check it's the eyes. Sometimes you can do it slightly lopsided, so do keep checking that you're happy with the position of the head. With the next one, when I talk you through the variations, I do moon gazing hair, so you can do the head looking up, head looking to the side, all sorts of variations. So just felting all around the back there, and it's not going to be firm, but it's going to be on for now. We're going to check its level, and then we're going to attach some more wool. So we're pretty good. That's on. It's right, it's correct where I want him. So take a section of wool, and I call this the scarf method. So we're going to just add it all the way around, and some of it's going to go up for the head, and most of it's down for the body, but this will make your head attach really, really well. So I do one lot of wool, and then I'm just loosely going to go round, and I know from experience I need at least another layer. That join mark there, don't worry, we'll cover that up later, especially when we add the ears. There's going to be a join mark from the ears, and underneath there is going to be covered by the chest hair. Chest hair sounds a bit weird, but yes, by the white fluffy chest hair. I'm probably using the 38, but you have got the wire in the middle of the body, so do be a little bit careful. So that's starting to attach. The thinnest point is just underneath the head, and you will feel there's not much in there, especially when you felt it. So I'm trying to just add another piece in just around that upper area there, and then start felting. And then once you've loosely attached it, you heard me, you're going to have to go round again and just felt it all really thoroughly, and that gives you the best attachment. So there we are, we're getting there. Looking fairly good. So we've still got to go all the way over and smooth all of that, which again takes a good 10 minutes. I think I then went to the 38, I was using the 36. But that bit there definitely needs lots of felting all the way through, and you can just give your head a little tug. It's got to be attached. You do not want a head falling off. But as you can see, it just takes a while. And I think even with one of the other rabbit hairs later on, I do add a tiny bit more just around that little join bit. So work all the way around and smooth it, and I'll see you for the ears in a minute. So the head is all done, and we are really getting there. Next we are going to do the ears. Just pulling bits of fluff off there. So these are the ears that we're working towards, and they're quite rolled in, and they've got black at the top on both sides and then white in the middle. You don't have to do these colours, but I just think it works really well. So take a section of the wool. The ears are about 4 inch, so you want it sort of about 5 or 6 inches. And then because it's quite thin, I've taken another little piece of the wool, I've spread it out, and I've sort of thickened up the ear. You don't want to have any gaps. Or you don't want it to be sort of see-through, so you could add more once you've felted it all down. So the piece that I took was at least 5 inches in length, and then the width of the ear is 2, so you're going to want to make it about 2.5 to 3 inches across, because we're going to fold in the edges. Now one end is going to be the point, which is that end to the right, and the other end is going to be the bit we attach to the base, and you want to leave that bit fluffy, and we'll pull it in a bit. So I want you to map out the shape of the ear whilst it's on your mat, and we will use to our advantage the fact that it sticks into the mat. So we want it to be 2 inches across and 4 inches in height, and we are just doing a shape of an open ear. Now I've just scraped it off so that it doesn't stick too much, and then I'm mapping out the outline again. So just take your 36 or the 38, whatever feels most comfortable, and just map out the shape of the ear. Now where it's stuck to the mat, from that line, you can fold the edges in and it's going to give you a nice edge bit, and it will help you with the shaping. If it's really thick and clumpy like it is there, spread it out a bit across the ear. And then the point, you don't make it, you sort of just fold it in, and then you'll get left with a tiny little bit, and then you could fold that bit in there just like that, and that gives you the tip of the ear. So everything at the base is all sort of fluffy, and we're going to leave that and just hold on to it to sort of pull it in a little bit. So that's the base. So it's roughly 4 inches in height. And so just felt this through a little bit, and then we're going to pull it off and felt the other side to sort of really firm it up a little bit more. And they do hold their shape. You don't need any wires or anything. So see how I'm peeling it off with my hands so that you don't break it, it doesn't pull apart. So you're sort of supporting it as you scrape it off. And then that is going to be the outside of the ear, because already it looks like it's a lot nicer, a lot neater, and this is what we're going to be working towards. So you can have a little check, see if you're happy with the height. And then turn it over, and then we're going to felt all the way down this and sort of firm up all of the ear. So this is sort of finer felting here to bring it all together. And I don't really felt down into the edges too much because they formed quite well already. So you don't have to worry about it too much. So here we are, I've speeded it up for you, but you can see the process. You can see the difference between the bit you felted well and the bit you haven't. And I do repeatedly pull it off the mat so it doesn't stick. Whatever mat you have, it will stick to the mat, you know, so do keep pulling it off. I was just pulling out a bit there that I didn't like, and I do gently felt along the edge sometimes, but I don't need to do too much to the edge. And then I'm just holding on to that bottom bit just to sort of pull it in a little bit. So that's all been felted once over, so I'm quite happy with that. We're going to apply heat to it in a minute, and this is how I do sort of neaten up the edge. If there's any bits that are looking a little bit fluffy, mind your fingers though, really be careful with your fingers there. We're going to take some black, very thin, and actually quite a small piece there. Make it very thin and just stretch it out so it sort of fades out. And then you're going to felt it over the top of the ear. And I've felted it bigger than the ear, so it will drop down and around the tip of the ear, because you've got the ear on either side and then you've got the edges as well, and you want to get the edges covered. So it's a lot easier if you cover the edges here by making it sort of go down and around, making it larger than the tip. And then once we've felted that on, we're going to pull it off, turn it over, and put some black on the other side. Now the good thing is it doesn't matter with the black going through, but when you do the other side, some of the grey comes through. So you might find, so that's fine. And I'm just pulling the excess I have sort of, and see that hasn't covered the edge of that one, so I'm going to make sure I cover it with this one so it goes right down around the edge. So when we're felting on this side, some of the grey might come through, so you might have to put a little bit more on. Take your 40 spiral and do some really fine shallow felting, so almost going down to sort of 20 degrees, and that way it helps you not going all the way through the ear. So you have to be very gentle and very light, but ultimately it won't look too bad if there's a couple of grey bits. See all that grey coming through there? And I'm just folding the edge bit over. So you could cover it again with a little bit more black, but again, as you do each side, you might get the grey coming through, so you have to be very shallow with your felting, like that. And then we're going to put some white on. Because these ears, you'll see the both sides of them, that's why you have to make sure they look good. When the ears are pointing down with Bonnie later, you'll only see one side of them, so it doesn't matter. And then felt the edge a little bit so that you've definitely covered it. And then I take a little bit of either the white, or I think I've taken a bit of the eggshell, which is a sort of very light pink, and felt it down on the inside very carefully so it doesn't go through. However, not much of it notices anyway once you roll up the ear. And because it's so light, the grey and the beige both have a bit of white in them, so it doesn't really come through the other side. It's not really a problem. The black was where the grey really showed. So just felt it down, make sure it's all attached. I think we're pretty much in real time with this. And work your way down, and then that ear will be done. And then you're going to create the second ear before we add heat, and then we're going to roll them in. So do the second ear. It's always best to do the second ear before you roll it up so you can see and measure the exact height and width. So there we go, they're both done. And I have taken some straighteners, very small ones, and I've done the top one there. You can see the difference, it's a lot thinner. Wool is actually, to a degree, quite heat resistant. Obviously I wouldn't test that too much, but it's absolutely fine to put the hair straighteners on it, and I gently go all over it, and then I start to hold them together and apply real pressure all the way over it. Obviously this is a mini pair of hair straighteners. If you've got an iron, that's absolutely fine, you can iron it. I think the majority of people have got an iron. If you haven't, don't worry. Just maybe felt it over once more and make sure you're happy with the thickness and go from there. You do not have to do this part if you don't want to, but I like it. I think it really helps. And then take a pair of scissors and very gently trim all along the outside, and it just gives it a nice neat edge. We're really not trimming off much at all. It's just, you're just getting those excess little hairs that are hanging over the edge. If you trim too much, you're probably going to have to felt it back together a little bit, so don't do too much there. And we've got nice fluffy bits at the ends as well, so we'll leave those there. We're going to use the fluffy bits for attaching it to the head. So this is how we're going to roll, but the other option could be you might want to just fold them in half and get sort of quite open ears. It's up to you, whatever you're thinking. You might want to fold one slightly down. With Bonnie, I'll show you how to do them both facing backwards. So if you just wanted the ear open, you would just felt along the inside bit just there. So you'd fold it in half and just felt along the back of it. But we're going to roll them, and you have to roll them the opposite way to each other. You don't roll them both the same because it wouldn't look right. So I've done one under, one in, and the next one on top. I'm just using, this is a multi-needle tool that I talked about earlier. They can speed up your work, and it's just much quicker when you've got two and you're holding it and you want it to be really secure. Now I like it to keep the tube look, so I don't like to felt it flat. So I just felt it a bit, then go to the fine needle and just felt it through, make sure it's definitely attached. But I'm trying to keep that tubular look to the ear. So I did that one, so I'll do the opposite here. So I'll do that one and then that one folding away. So they are a matching pair. Otherwise they'd both be going in the same direction and it wouldn't look right. Now you can open them up a bit, you can close them up a bit, you can stretch them a bit. Don't worry if they're not absolutely identical. You want them to be pretty close, but it's okay if they're not. And they're going to go right at the back of the head. This is how we're going to do them. You could do one up, one down. You could do them pointing downwards and out. You could really play around with these hairs and give them quite a lot of character. You could turn it round like that. You could have them backwards. It could be scared, bored, happy, all sorts of things. But I think they look really smart with two ears up. So I'm going to do two ears up on this one. I'm just playing around here trying to see. They do look quite nice, two ears sort of apart a little bit. I do think that's quite nice. But yeah, we're going for two ears straight up. So put it in position and then turn it over and you're going to felt down. As I said, like to keep this tubular look. So felt down either side of it so that you don't squish the back of the ear too much. So yeah, I'm going either side of it And then once you get a little bit further down, all of that is loose and fluffy, and it's just going to merge into the base of the body, or into the back of the head and the back of the neck. So it works really, really well. So you're going to spend a bit of time. You could pull some of that off if you've got tons. If you haven't, I would probably just felt it in. It's much easier. If you pull it off now at this point, you might pull some of the ear. So do it before you attach the ear. And there we go, just felt that all down. And then you'll get the other one. The line marks at the side, we're going to put some wool over and cover it in a minute, so don't worry about those. So I've kept that sort of tubular look, and then once it hits the bottom of the head or the top of the neck, then you just start to felt it all in. And then have a look at the other one, check it's the right level. If it's too high or too low, you can pull it off and start again. So just tack it in place, have a look, make sure you're happy, and then carry on felting. So felting is really good because you can pull things off quite easily before you've felted them too much, especially. So there we go, and then just tack either side of it. Mind your fingers, because sometimes you hold underneath the neck and you can easily go through. You think, oh yeah, my fingers are fine. They're not. So be very careful that you're not underneath the hair at this point, holding on to him. So there we go. And that join mark there, we're just going to get a piece of wool, excuse me, a very small, thin piece of wool, so that you don't have to felt too much. But it does help to just cover up the join mark, and then do the same on the other side. I would use the 40 spiral here. Well, the 38 really is a good needle, so it's a very good workhorse, the 38. So it'd be fine if you did use that. And then we're going to cover up the chest afterwards, so don't worry about the chest area underneath there. So just spend a bit of time just felting that wool in. Do the other side. I just curled and twisted it a bit because it was just a bit too long and fluffy. And then if you've got any odd bits sticking up, really annoying bits, just cut them off with a pair of scissors. So next we're going to do the chest hair. We are so nearly there. So take the white wool that you put aside, that little tiny patch, but you've probably got the base wool left over anyway, hopefully. So take a section and check it's the right length. It's not going to fall off. If it is, just stack it a little bit. So pull it and stack it, and then it's going to go, you're going to felt through the middle of that section, and that middle bit is going to be just at the top of the legs. And then when you fold it down, it will cover the very top of the legs, which is quite nice. And we'll do a little V, a little diamond point. So you do that one, you only felt it through a little bit and it stays in. Fold that down. Do not do anything with it, just leave it all fluffy. And the next layer is going to be about 1/2 inch higher. So pop it in. It's a little bit tricky. I mean, you can't really see where you're felting, but you can just have a look at the side and check you're at the right height. And then you should be able to fit one more slightly smaller one in just under the chin. So you're literally felting in right under the chin where the chin joins the neck. Take out any bits here because this is definitely going to show you don't want any bits in your wool. So just felt that through, and you really don't need to do it that much. Just felt it in a straight line across, and then fold it all down, fluff it out a bit, and then we're just going to take a needle, and it's too fluffy. You might like it this fluffy, it's up to you, but I think you just take a needle and do some random felts through it just to squish it down a bit. Make sure the edges are straight, do not overly felt it. And then you'll see it just sort of, it's fluffy, but it's a little bit more structured and shaped, so it's not sort of all over the place. And then I like the middle bit just to come down between the legs there, just sort of a little tiny bit. You can add more if you want more. So I like that little sort of V just there. And then just the edges are the bits that sort of show that you've added it in layers, so you just sort of cover those bits up. And then right under the chin you can sort of really push it back in. And honestly, that's it. It's very, very simple. And then if it looks like you've felted it too much, just give it a little rub with your finger and that'll loosen it up. But I like that. Perfect. And then we're going to do the tail. And it's exactly the same. You take the white wool. I'm just pushing it right in under the chin because I like them to still sort of have a neck area. There we go. And then the tail is going to go right at the base. So take quite a biggish section, a bit bigger than you did for some of the chest hair. And then I like to just give it a little twist. I just added a bit more there. Give it a twist in the middle. You don't have to do the twist, but it helps you just keep it all together. Take out any bits. So that's how long it is. It's not that long. Twist it and then put that twist right at the base there. And you're going to felt through that twist. You don't have to hold that twist in place, but that twist sort of just makes it so it's a smaller area to felt in. So felt it quite firmly in. And then once that's in, you're going to fold up the bottom bit. There we go. So you've got that bit going up, fold up that bottom bit, couple of gentle felts to make sure it stays up. And then we're just going to very carefully felt a little bit along the edge. It just sort of guides the wool, but you do not want to lose the fluffiness of this tail. And then this bit here, sometimes I get a pair of scissors, so a couple of felts through, and I like to just trim this off at an angle, and it almost looks more pointed, I think. So you've got a nice tail that comes up to a little point, and do not overly felt the top of it though, because it will look silly. If you do, just sort of pull it off a bit, and if it's really wrong, just pull the whole thing off and start again. But there we go, it's a little tiny fluffy tail. So we are done. There we go. So well done on finishing your first hair. I just want to talk you through variations now. So you can do ears open, ears rolled, ears up, ears down, head up, head down a bit, legs up, legs down. So we're going to go on to one leg down and one leg up. So do one normal leg at 4.5 and the other leg you want it to be 3.5. Because if it was 4.5 and you had it up, it would look a little bit too big, too long. So that's the 3.5 one there that we're going to do. Really simple, just cover it exactly the same like you did with the other legs. And then we're going to give it a bend like that afterwards when it's done. So we're doing this in the rabbit colour. So this is Bonnie. So split it again and then just roll it up, spend a bit of time on it, smoothing it over. So it's super simple. If you wanted to do 2 legs up, again do them 3.5, and I'll show you later they'd be attached in a slightly different way. So there we go. So there's 2 legs. So attach that one as normal. That's the long one. And then with the other one, so give it a bend and a bend. It's every sort of third along. And that's how you're going to attach it. Really simple, no major big difference. And then put a bit of wool over the top. The only thing is you can't felt it. It's only that top bit that you can felt it to secure it, but that's more than enough to make it nice and firm. So attach those 2, do that one first and then do the other one. I quite like this pose with one leg up, one leg down. But I do think the hairs look the best with both ears up after doing quite a few now. I think they are more likely to sell if you're looking to sell these. So as I say, I'm quite happy for you to sell these designs. It's not a problem, but all the teaching rights, such as reproducing it as a kit or a workshop or anything like that, those remain with me. So thank you for respecting my work as an artist. So just attach that there. And you could jazz these up with ribbons, bows. I'll show you some of the stands I put them on. So you can really sort of jazz these up a bit. So you're only attaching on that little back bit there. You haven't really got anywhere else that you can attach it, and then put the wool over there. Don't forget to put the wool over the top. So if you were doing it 2 legs up like that, you would attach them further up again 3.5, but only the last bit would be bent, and they're a lot higher up on the body. And so don't forget a little bit of wool at the top, and that really secures it on. I even did one of the eyes differently with that hare that you just saw. Sorry, I always call it a rabbit. That hare with the 2 legs up, and my son doesn't like it at all. Said he looks a little bit weird. And then you attach the head, all as normal. So once you've done the legs, go and do all the face. That's the head in the bonny colour. And that one I did just normal attachment. So you would just attach it like that. This one I am going to do as a moon gazing hare. It's a very common pose. So you're just holding it in that position and then attaching it on. A little bit trickier because it moves quite a bit, but once you get it attached, add the scarf wool around the neck. It's absolutely fine. It stays on. So if you basically hold something in the position you want it and then felt it there, it will stay there after a while. So I keep having to sort of move it upwards. I do like the placement of the ears on this one, but I'm still not 100% sure it's my most favourite. We'll see when I go to a craft fair which ones sell first. And the ears, so I give you a dark brown, it's called mocha, so you only put it on the outside. And I'm folding these ones in half. So you just felt along a little bit. I almost do it at an angle, sort of along how the back of the head is going to be. And then we do have too much fluff here for attaching on the back of the head because it will come over the top and we don't want to bulk up the top of the head. So that's how we're going to be attaching them. Do the other one. Just checking I'm doing it at the right length for both of them. And then I felt at a slight angle, and then we're going to trim off at an angle as well. So you've still got, you want some fluffy wool there, only a little bit to help attach it. I'm using this as a multi-needle tool I talked about earlier, just speeds things up. And that's how we're going to be attaching them. So see all that fluff, I don't want all of that top bit. I just want about 1/4 of an inch to help me with attaching, and that's how we're going to be doing them. Just fold them in half a bit more if they're a bit too flared out. So get the scissors and just angle it in the direction of how it's going to attach the head, to the head, sorry. And then that leaves you a little bit just to play with and to help with attaching, and that's how we're going to attach it. And again, I just try and keep the shape of the ear at the back there. I wouldn't felt it too flat on. So here we are, the trimming again, just so you can see the angle that I cut it at. And then attach the other one. So it's quite a nice look. I like just the brown tips as well. Definitely the brown goes with the beige colour better than black. That's why I've supplied you with some brown, so you definitely have it as an option. You might want no colouring on your hare's ears, or you might have a slightly lighter brown. There we go, and then just take a little bit of wool and cover up your join marks at the back of the head there. You really don't need much. There we go, just pop it over there and felt it down. So that's the moon gazing pose, and you've seen the 2 legs up, and that's 1 leg up, 1 leg down. So yeah, lots to play around with. Open ears, rolled ears. It's up to you. Just neatening it up there. And then you just carry on and do the chest hair and the tail exactly the same as we did for the first hair for Beatrice. And feel free to choose different names for your hairs. Obviously Harriet Hare is a very popular name. and trim off those fluffy bits. A little bit annoying. There we go. So chest hair, exactly the same, 3 layers up normally. Make sure you don't pick up the eggshell, which I accidentally did, I think. And then the tail. And you have completed another hair. Now these do take me a while. They don't just happen in like 3 hours. They do take me a while to do, have lots of breaks and everything, but just enjoy them, enjoy the process. And I have loads of videos on my channel, loads of free tutorials as well. And I have, on my Thinkific site, I have more advanced hairs as well. So here we go, just to show you, sometimes I put them on little wood bases, but these are all some of the different types. There's one I think I haven't put in there. And then just having another look at them. But you see how the ears up rolled? I think they look great. So these are wood bases off Amazon. You could put a bit of grass on it. And to make them really nice, these are wood spindles that I use. They're very popular for sales too. So I hope you have really enjoyed going through this. Well done if you've managed to complete both your hairs. Do give me any feedback, but thank you so much for watching. And I'm always updating my YouTube channel with regular videos, so hopefully see you over there. Take care.